Hi, and welcome to another episode of Celebrating Small Family Businesses. I'm John Cooter,
And I'm Connie Cooter.
and we are virtually in Los Angeles with Kimeyo Daniels. Hi, Kimeyo.
How's it going? How's it going? I
Well,
got my two friends with me, Chunky and George made it.
Hi,
And our
Chunk. Hi, George.
welcome to the party.
our family business is Kimeyo Records.
Like the sign says
Cool.
behind you. Okay, cool.
Exactly.
And so, for our audience, what kind of music and how did the business start? What led you to being a recording artist?
It's predominantly hip hop music, and what got it started is I've been doing it like from the time I was 19, and as of recently in 2021, when the boys came and said, "Dad, we not going nowhere. We moving in with you." It developed into what we are today. And I got them a Mac computer with some sounds on it, and just let him take over the living room or the dining room at the time, and just keep making music until we came with something. And one day I decided, I'm gonna start making a record with the music that they was making, and at the same time show them how to pursue this career in entertainment. But that's my take on it. So you can ask either one of them how it developed.
Okay. So, Chunk, what is your specialty in the business? What are you, musician, technician? What?
Mainly I just make music. Mainly,
And how long you been making music?
mm, realistically, since I was like, I don't know, like elementary school, but like seriously, I say like since like I'm living my dad probably like it's been like seriously for
Is there? Do you play a particular instrument? Is there?
nah. I just play everything like on my laptop. That's in the studio. But like I kind of be playing with the piano and stuff. I'm not really serious with it. I don't play.
Okay, so like would it be Garage Band or a program like that?
Yeah, I use FL Studio. What do you? And he said FL Studio. He talked real low. You gotta, yeah, I need him to speak up. You gotta speak up so he can hear you, Chunk. I use
That
FL Studio.
FL Studio. Okay, I wasn't familiar with that one.
Always looking for
I
new
played
things.
with I played with Garage Band years ago when I was had a lot more free time. So, George, how about you? What's your specialty? What's your interest? What like how you got into this?
I'm mainly a producer. I just be making beats almost every day. I started when I was like younger, when I was like 12. Like my brother inspired me. So he's who got me into making beats and stuff. So I just started since then. And then like my sound over time like evolved. And then yeah, that's basically it.
Okay. And again, is that all electronic? I mean,
That's
I know
like
people do beats with their mouth and stuff, but
yeah, like everything's digital. I do everything like digitally on the computer. Yeah.
so that's percussion, really, isn't it? Is that right?
No, it's
Or
different sound modules. Like they might have a drum pack, keyboard sounds, different elements of sounds, and they just blend it together. Like they probably not gonna tell you what programs they're using because that's telling everybody what they
but
secrets are.
fine,
Yeah.
fine.
But they predominantly just they use different sound modules and different
Okay.
programs, and
Well,
that's how they come to create their music. They
back.
same driving force as FL Studio. They both work on FL Studio.
Okay. I'm kind of old, so I've been, listening to rock and roll and synthesizers and all that stuff. I was really in love with synthesizers back in my teenage years, and they had one of the big developments, and I can't remember the name of the company now, but they had tapes that they could plug into it was a keyboard, and they had sample tapes, and so they might have a sample of a train whistle, and they'd plug that in, and then the entire keyboard would be that train whistle, over multiple octaves,
Mm.
and they could, then plug in a different sound, and it'd be I don't know, seagulls, but they could play whatever they could make capture as a sound, and they could play it on the keyboard, and then I think that all evolved into just built in. It's all digital now, but sampling is the only word I can remember about that. But
Well,
yeah.
Kimeyo, how old were you when you got started in all this?
Well, I've been like rapping since I was like 12, maybe even earlier than that when it first got introduced. Like when hip hop first got introduced, I started rapping. So in elementary school, I used to be a battle rapper, junior high school, battle rapper, high school, battle rapper. And then after my father passed, I started writing. And once I started writing and I became an artist, I started like maybe let's say 19. So at 19, I started writing songs. And a lot of the songs that I was writing, it had to have some meaning to it. So I kept doing that. And my first record that I did was called The Lesson. And it was basically different elements in my life that I experienced that I wish I could have had my father around to show me the ropes on. So all of those songs was like me figuring it out. And that was the first record that I ever wrote, The Lesson. I had like several producers, all the up and coming producers that was in Los Angeles at the time. And that was me rapping. And then when everything kind of went haywire with that record, I ended up moving to Miami. And when I moved to Miami, I ended up getting an MPC 2000 XL, which is a drum machine, a MIDI sequencer, and a Chord Karma keyboard. And I started producing. I started getting sounds from different producers, and then I would make my own beats. And then I did another record called The Lesson Part Two, where I predominantly did all the production for myself. And I started learning how to use the MIDI and then play keys and add elements to it. I was even sampling some records, and I was learning how to. And what I would do is I would sample the record and then I'll try to replay it the way that I want to hear it. So I wouldn't really use that record anymore. So after a while, I might start off. Let's give you an example. I might have taken a Ozzy Brothers record and then I'll sample it. Then I'll play the drums the way that I wanted the drums to sound. Then I'll play the keys the way that I feel the keys could sound, and then some strings. And once I get the beat kind of full, then I'll take the sample all the way out and won't use the sample anymore and just keep building on what I have from there. And that's how I kind of taught myself how to make beats, because copyright infringement, if you sample and you don't have the money to pay to get it clear, then you can't really use that record. And I wasn't one of the artists that wanted to deal with legal issues in that fashion. So that's how I taught myself how to produce records. So let's just say it started about 19 for me, and I became passionately serious about it, maybe around about like 24, 25, and then it was off to the races after that.
Nice.
That is so
Nice.
cool.
And at some point, you moved from Miami back to LA, I believe.
Yes, because I lived my whole life in Cali, and I went to Miami to get a publishing deal for one of my dear friends that was a producer. And I had an independent record company at that time with my ex-girlfriend at the time. We was in a relationship, and everything didn't kind of pan out, and I got real depressed because I spent like almost 9 years putting the lesson together, my own money and everything. And when I had to separate from that relationship, that record was collateral damage for me. So I didn't really want to be in California. So I ended up staying in Miami. And when I lived in Miami, I met my buddy JV, Big JV, and he used to let me come in his house and set my equipment up in this patio. And his grandma, she like had to be about 70. His dad was in his 60s, mom's in the 60s. And I would come in that house at 9:30 every morning and just start making beats. So I had a whole house shaking. And Grandma Abuela, because he Cuban, Abuela would be sitting right there in the living room or in the kitchen counter, just chilling, not telling to turn it off. Pops would be sitting in a sofa chair watching TV, and I got the whole house just rattling, and they would just be there. And so we ended up booking some studio time, and I ended up working with an engineer by the name of Frank Stacoro, who did a lot of work with some other engineers, Salah Remy, who worked on Amy Winehouse. He also worked on a lot of the Bad Boy projects. But me and Frank Socorro, we sat in the studio for like, I'm gonna say about 5 months just working on just learning how to really cultivate my production and my writing because I didn't have no friends there. I was in Miami, strictly just me, my keyboard, my drum machine, and the studio. And that's when Pro Tools first hit. So I did that whole record on Pro Tools. And ironically, when I was working, Shakira was working right downstairs from me. So every day I would see Shakira. She would come up to my sessions, and not one time did I ever ask her could she be on the record. I'm pretty sure she would have did it because she used to come in my sessions every day. I would see her every single day, and it was just that moment in Miami is when I really knew like my confidence level was there because I didn't have no friends. All I had was my music and I was working. And from there, me and JV, we used to go like back and forth because I ended up showing him the business. And when he got it, he started having his own vision. So our visions started splitting ways. So rather than continue to be frustrated, I just came back to Cali. And when I came back to Cali, I started producing my little brother, Cali, and another artist that was from Florida. And I used to go back and forth to San Francisco producing my cousin, Dirty Dane, out of the Bay. And I was just going around just doing production for people. I would charge some and some I wouldn't. If you was a friend of mine, I wasn't going to charge you. But if I didn't know you, I was pretty much charging. And then a couple years after that, I met their mom, and it was like I paused. I was still doing music because when we was together, I had a studio in the house and a recording studio in High Point, North Carolina, and I started just continuing to keep producing. And then I ran into some rough times there, and I had to come back to Cali. And when I came back to Cali, I had to get a job and all this other stuff. But I kept working. I kept trying to do music, kept trying to finish songs. And then I ended up veering off to Atlanta again. So I went back to Atlanta, and I had to stay in Atlanta for a year and 3 months. So when I stayed in Atlanta for that year and 3 months, I met a lot of people. I wasn't producing now. Now I'm strictly just the artist. So now I'm buying beats from other producers. And when I came back to Cali, I was trying to find myself again. So I ended up going to our Musicians Institute and took the music business course where I got to be educated by Ken Kerner, the guy that discovered Kiss. One of my other professors, Bobby Borg, who is a matter of fact, he's a consultant. He's all over YouTube, helping do it yourself DIY
Hmm.
um, skills with the music business. And one of my professors was Barry Squire, who was a big A&R for a lot of rock bands back in the day. And that's when I really learned that what I knew for the record business, I kind of understood it because in class I was excelling everywhere. So that was that transition. So I just kept dealing with music, kept working. And fast forward to, let's say, COVID era, right? My boys moved in like in 2021. So that was 2 years after COVID. So when COVID hit, That's when I first started putting music out on CD Baby. I put my first record out with CD Baby in 2019. And that was a record that I ended up working with one of my peers, but somebody that I look up to in the record business by the name of Big Hutch, but he's also known as Code 187 from the group Above the Law, which was signed to Easy E. So me and him did a whole record together in the studio where he did the majority of the production. And I had a couple of my friends come in. I'm very good at that. Like I will find one producer and work with that one producer, but then I would always bring in other producers because it's like my way of maintaining control and ownership of my projects. So that's
Huh.
how I work. So instead of me just allowing one person to have a monopoly over the project, I would always bring in other people so that I can make sure that I kept the ownership rights and I was the one behind everything. So I was very adamant about that.
Yeah, that
20,
seems to be a theme that's, in the entertainment industry, whether it's film or music or anything, is that battle for rights and how many artists have signed away their rights somewhere early on in their career when they didn't realize what they were doing because, to try to get that break, right?
yes. And once I was educated on the business, now see, it's like I sped through a whole lot. I gave you like a good 20 years of history condensed in like maybe 7 minutes. But if
Understood. That's fine.
I broke down each one of those stages, let's just talk about the lesson. The album, the lesson. At that time, how the lesson came about was I was trying to manage and find other artists and manage those artists. So I had a couple of producers, a couple of artists, but we wasn't in major studios. We was in the house because I was under the impression you make a good quality demo, you shop it, you get somebody to put the money up, and then you go do quality music. But I come to learn that nah, that's just a myth. You know what I'm saying? You really got to know somebody. So you had to invest the money into the quality studios. Well, at that time, my childhood friend, who I ended up getting in a relationship with, which is my daughter's mom, Marlene, she had a job where her boss, husband, happened to be a well known entertainment attorney. And the boss, Miss Leslie Pearlstein, introduced me to her husband. And her husband was Michael J. Pearlstein of the firm Fishbach, Pearlstein, and Lieberman. And when I walked in his office, he gave me a book on publishing. And I'll tell everybody this story because this is what changed my life as far as pursuing this business. He gave me a book on publishing and he gave me a meeting. So when I came back, like maybe 2 weeks after he gave me the book on publishing, he asked me a question that was on the first page of the book. And I didn't answer it. And he yelled at me from his office in the back of the firm, all the way through the law firm, where all the associates, paralegals, receptionists, secretaries, everybody watching him just go off on me. I mean, he was very, very upset with me because it's like he took the time out to teach me something and gave me something, and I didn't take the time to read it. So he cussed me out all the way out the office door. And
Ooh.
I promised myself that he would never have that one on me again. And I learned the business. I started reading up. Not only did I read that publishing book, I ended up buying the book This Business of Music, and I read that cover to cover. So I started learning what the language was in the contracts and what each one of those clauses was, control composition clauses and transferring of rights and the ownership and mechanical royalties. So I started reading and learning what all of these different things was because I was not going to allow him to yell at me again for that, you know? So,
Which is a small price compared to, getting caught in one of those, not knowing that thing and getting in a business deal and losing the rights to something, much more costly than getting yelled at. So, I understand why you say he did you a favor there.
so,
That's
so
cool.
for me learning the business, now I'm trying to manage other artists. And while I'm managing the artists, they're not putting forth the effort that you want to see when you trying to get somewhere. Like they passionate, but they not consistent. They not, aggressive about it. I really got to do a lot of the pushing and motivating to get them to work.
Hmm.
And then because I knew the business, they would always feel like I'm trying to steal from them. And it was not just said one day, let me just do it for myself. And that's when I went, put the money down and started producing myself. And I met Mark Palladino at a studio called The Edge. And Mark Palladino taught me how to make records. He set me down and showed me what each one of them channels are for the sounds. And at this time, I was working on a 2-inch reel. They don't even use 2-inch reels no more. So if you made a mistake on a 2-inch reel, you had to literally go all the way back and start all over. So that's where my foundation comes from working on 2-inch reels, real recorded, 24 track studios, right? So now I'm a fast forward to 2021 when they come into the house.
Yeah, let's get back to them. Where
So I got this old school formula of making records. They totally new school with making records. So we would clash. We would clash. And it got to the point to where I would just leave them alone. Like, let me just, I'll come in there, maybe say one or two lines, but I'll be very passionate about it. So it's kind of like I'm going off on them and I'll leave them alone. But I'll say my two, three, four, fives, which is publishing, writers, copyright infringement, make sure you're talking about something. So I would always be on their head about don't use samples. Make sure you did this beat. Try not to use them MIDI loops. Learn how to create it yourself because you want to make sure you have the rights and nobody can come take what you do. So that was me, right?
uh-huh.
And
So
we
hard won lessons, lessons you
yes,
learned the hard way, and
yes. Yes. So after a while, they got so good at it, I just had to respect their methods, their decisions. Like it got to the point to where I couldn't come in there and critique them no more. I could just only tell them I like this, I don't like this. I give them my opinion, add this, add that, but they was the ones driving the vehicle. They was the ones that understood what they was looking for when they was creating this music. So this is where we are now. And so only thing I do right now is just make sure I teach them how to protect it. And I'm doing a lot of talking. I mean, you could ask them some questions about how they developed into who they are and what role I played, because I would love to hear what they would have to say about my position with them.
Me too. Okay. So who wants to go first? Shall I
I'll go.
pick?
George.
Go, George. So regarding that old school versus new school, what's your take on that? And how did you show Kimeyo that you were doing what worked? Is that a fair question?
Well, they're like some of the old school stuff, we still use it now. Like the same techniques, same thinking, same patterns and stuff like that. Like music patterns basically. Like we still use it like at this time. And also some of the new stuff, like I feel like it helps like amplify what you create. If that makes sense.
So, how is it working with your dad?
Um oh
I'm gonna put you on
sometimes
the
he's
hot
like
seat.
I feel like like he said, he's passionate about what he does. So he takes it like seriously. You have to like be serious about what you want to make, how you're gonna do it.
Well, let me ask a slightly different one. What have you guys figured out about how to manage the business relationship versus the family relationship? Like when you're working, what it, like I don't know what different people do different things. Some people, they say, okay, that's family stuff. We're going to set that aside. This is business, and they even go so far as to call each other by first names instead of dad and son or whatever. Other people, maybe get hats made. There's all kinds, but how do you manage that? Like, do you draw lines between the family and the business, or does it just all work together for you?
I feel like we do draw lines. Like certain points or certain times. We're talking about like music, or we're talking about like yeah, basically when we're talking about music, that's like one whole thing, and then there's like family matters. We like talk about that like different time, not all in the same thing, basically.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Keeping it separate. Chunk, what about you? What's coming to mind for you in all this?
What you mean?
Well, I mean, you heard all the stuff your dad said. Did anything, as you're listening to that, did anything like jump up in your mind to say that's that's something like a really good point, or well, different way you look at it, and whatever. I'm just kind of throwing it out there.
Well, not really. I mean, it makes sense, but he has his own vision. I mean, it can't really feel took away but somebody else's vision.
Okay, right there. I'm going to ask you to speak. Say that again, just a little bit louder. But I think I'm hearing some like wise words here. I want everybody to hear that.
Nah, I just said it makes sense, but like that's his vision. I can't feel no type of way about somebody else's vision. They like I want to clay forward.
Do what?
You gotta. He's 16, so you gotta be prepared for him.
But yeah, vision. That is such especially you're in the creative field, right? You're making music, and it's seems to be music. Again, like I'm a 70s rocker, so hip hop's is kind of not in my wheelhouse, but it seems like it's really passionate, personal music. I mean, like what they say, Taylor Swift, all of her songs are, about somebody she used to date or something like that. It's personal that way. But your music just sounded like there is an edge, it's an emotional edge to it. I was getting choked up. So when you talk about vision, well, I was listening, as far as the music I listened to, it's what was on the Kimeyo website. But what influenced your vision for what you do, John?
I do.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I just mainly talk about, I guess, I don't know, my life, or what I'm saying, certain things that I feel about, like how I feel about certain situations. I was like, because my thing is, like, if I make a song about one thing, I would just make a different song about that same thing, but just change like everything up to sound like a whole different song. So, but like majority of them all have the same meaning. I mean, so I like to do other things, songs about my experiences or stuff that I'm going through, stuff like that.
So, and this is so new. I almost don't know what to ask. It's so interesting.
But I got a question.
Yeah.
Is it fun working together?
Is it fun?
Yeah.
Bars.
Sometimes, yeah.
I'm just kind of like working on myself. I feel like it's more efficient because I'm trying to do my own stuff, my own thing. What's up, PJ? So, personally, I kind of like working by myself because I work more efficiently, like doing stuff on my own. Like, you know what I'm saying? I like to do my own stuff. I only like people kind of trying to take my vision and, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't really I mean, I take suggestions, but I don't really like people trying to put their hand in my stuff.
Sweetheart, we worked in family businesses. We understand people in your business that you don't want there and then know nothing about it. We do understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or somebody thinking they know better, and with the best of intentions sometimes, right? Like
that's what we clash at. That's what me and Chucky clash at. I'll come with a suggestion. When I don't just do the suggestion, I actually try to put hands on it. And he just like he don't want to be bothered. So he go on his own little zone, and then it takes me like a week to get something out of him after that. He's mad now. I gotta wait for him to calm down before I can go ask him for anything.
Cross the line, man. Yeah.
George, on the other hand, George just get it done and get me out the way, and he'll go back to doing whatever he says. George just learned how to let me just get rid of him real quick. I go back to doing what I want to do. So
Easier to
Yeah.
do what he says, right? Than and just get it done.
What is it, George? You ain't got nothing to say?
That's cute.
Well, you find, you try stuff, right? You try different things to see what works, and that's, I mean, whether it's trying a different sound or a different way that you produce. I think producing is the way you're mixing and putting things together. But same with how you work together. Sometimes it's that, again, that's where we work. Like what we were talking about from our video, being kind of being conscious and intentional about it, like and asking questions. Like, so if somebody's getting mad with you, maybe it's time to stop and ask a question. Like, what's not working about that? And and try changing things up. Put somebody else in charge and let them run with it and let them make mistakes. That would seem like the beauty of what you're doing, is that when you're making a song, I mean, if you're not burning $500 an hour of studio time or something, it's kind of low stakes to just run with something, and if it blows up, what did it cost you except a little time?
That I respect them. I respect them. So when they working, like I know when I'm getting on their nerves a little bit, and sometimes I do get in my own feelings that they kicking me out. It does kind of, because I be wanting to be all involved. I want to be very hands on in the chemistry of it, but uh, I could kind of sense when I'm getting on their nerves, so I kind of leave them alone. That's why they both got their own system. George has his own laptop. Chunky has his own laptop, and they got us a little home studio in the garage, and it's just then it's like who gonna come work and who's not gonna come work. George don't want to do no rapping, so George can predominantly be self-contained with some headphones and his computer and make the beats. Chunky, he wants to rap, so he'll be in the studio rattling the room and then coming in here and making vocals. But now he done got Dusty in here because he done figured out a way to do it all from his phone and the laptop without coming this way. But I respect them. That's the biggest, you know, advantage for me to be dad as well as like a mentor. Because even though I know that I know what I'm doing and I got my own understanding of everything, I had to learn how to follow their lead in order for them to get the confidence level that they had. So I started respecting what they was doing individually. Because it would be one time where I would feel like Cherokee was more developed in production than George. But then I learned that because I'm giving so much praise and accolades to Chunky, I'm smothering George from expressing himself. So I started shying away from Chunky a little bit and started acknowledging George because I noticed they got two different sounds. George has his sound, Chunky has his sound. But it's rare when you could get them to work together, because like Chunky said, he don't want nobody interfering with him. He want to be by himself. George is open to it long as it ain't gonna crash what George is looking for. And they'll argue all day long. They'll argue all day long about the weirdest things on production, or who drums is right, whose kick is right, who playing the sound in the right key. So those little like bickering, I get to sit back and listen and kind of be proud because it's like they're actually bickering over their creative visions. It's not like one is doing everything and the other one is following. No, they both have their own direction and which way they're going to go. And they both respect each other's judgment. Because, like George mentioned earlier, see, I didn't know that Chunky started and inspired George. I thought it was the other way around. I thought it was George started and inspired Chunky. But to hear it was Chunky, and then George caught on, and boom, now I see what it is. Because, but as far
Cool.
as both of them in their respective lanes, I've learned that both of them are very, very in tune to all aspects of the production process. They understand what the plugins are for and the arrangements of the drums and the arrangements of the keys and how to put the sounds here and there. And I was extremely impressed with the production. Like I told my engineer, box cutter, Smythe Hernandez, I told him like we could have went and paid money and got other producers to create this project, but it would take away from the credit that I want my sons to receive for what they're doing. So I would rather put this record out and let everybody critique it, knowing they're in their development years, than to have somebody else come in and take that credit and rob them of what they rightfully worked and earned. They earned the right to call themselves producers. They earned the right to tell people that they need to be paid for their time. They earn that. They put that work in. They develop themselves to be producers. And I didn't want to take that away from them by going to other people. I was going to take what they gave me, clean it up with my engineer, and make the best possible sound that I could from that, and then present it. And
Yeah.
I'm very impressed. I like what we came with. I mean, they collectively they did 9 records on my album. And as a dad, I'm so impressed. I'm so proud of my boys. You know what I'm saying? And I spread the music out so it's not like you hearing all Chunky, then you hearing all George. It's like it's a sprinkle of Chunky, a sprinkle of George, sprinkle of somebody else, sprinkle of George, sprinkle of Chunky, sprinkle of somebody else. And when I did the writing, I wrote songs in different delivery methods, different cadence, so that I can marry myself to the music rather than the music dictating how it's gonna go. And I'm just extremely impressed. And I haven't let anybody hear the record. Like it's only maybe been a handful of people that actually heard the record. I just gave it to my manager today for him to hear because it just got back from mastering. And I wanted to get his opinion on the album. And right after I gave it to him, I told Box Cutter, man, why did I even mention that I had it? I want to protect it like this is gold. I feel like it's was it 1843 and I'm in San Francisco and I just found me a gold nugget. So I
Yes.
don't want nobody to know about my gold nugget. You know what I'm saying? I got 2 perfectly pristine gold nuggets right here, and I didn't want to present it to nobody until it was all the way developed. So
Yeah.
I'm very appreciative that God blessed me with these 2 young men and their creative vision and their skill set and their methods of creating what they gave me to go do what I'm doing. And I respect them. I respect they movement. So sometimes I am and it's hard for me not to be a dad, you know, it's hard for me not to be a dad because I only want the best for them. But sometimes I kind of get carried away, you know, I go a little overboard because I want so much for them, you know. So I try to I try to push them. I push them as hard as I can. And then when they get to that line and they feel like they're going to break, I give them one more push. And when I push them right there, what they come back with is like amazing. Because George was at the point where he was feeling like, you know, he couldn't figure out nothing. He like, man, I'm making everything every day. I'm blocked. I'm blocked. And then I'm like, man, well, just give me what you got, and he went in there and he made something totally different than what he's been doing. And then that came and boom. And with Chunky, I stay on Chunky. I stay on because his ego, Chunky has the ego, he has the confidence, he has the skill set, and he's very, very cocky. So I wrestle with him. That's like a wild Mustang that I gotta constantly calm him down.
Okay. Okay.
And And George, on the other hand, is real humble and confident, and he knows what he knows. You're not going to tell George something different. George is already like, all right, you can think what you want. Let me go on and give you what you need so you can let me go back to where I want to be in my position. So if we had to put it in the aspect of, let's say we had a warehouse, because I worked in a warehouse and I can make this terrible. Chunky, I can leave Chunky alone in the warehouse and he's going to do the job, but he going to have fun all day. We're gonna have fun. And everything is gonna be all over the warehouse, but it's gonna be organized. So when I get to wondering where this is and why you got this over there, he gonna be mad at me that I'm coming at him, but he knows where everything is in the warehouse and he can and get it all done in his own pace and mind. George is gonna already be organized. Everything
Okay.
is gonna be where it's supposed to be and organized. And then if I ask him why did he do this, he'll tell me, well, I moved it over here because I needed more space to do this, and I'll do that. And then if I get on his nerves, he'll just move it where I want it so I won't bother him about it no more. But in his mind, he'll let me see I should have left him alone and did it his way because I actually could have utilized that space that he already allocated for me. But Chunky just gonna do Chunky. It's gonna be how it is. You just gotta accept it for what it is, but everything's gonna be organized. And he's paying attention. So I get the best of both worlds with them from that perspective.
Yeah,
That's
you
why I
do.
have so much respect and appreciation for their work ethic.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's about, I mean, I'm hearing a lot there, but respecting their differences, right? Your uniqueness. Each person is unique, and it sounds like from what you talked about the different roles in the business that George not really being interested in doing the rapping and just more of the technical side that really fits his personality and his way of thinking. And Chunk is like he's got to have that bravado, that self confidence, the little bit of wildness to do the rapping, right? I mean, that's not
Well,
something, that's not a real quiet, passive thing, is it?
So what's next?
Yeah. What's next for the business? Where do you see it going?
well, we putting out my record
Is that a CD
process.
or is it? I mean, when you say record, I'm thinking
Online.
vinyl. So
I'm still debating on if I want to make physical copies of it, but the next stage for me after we put out the process is to work on getting Chunky at either an EP or a full-fledged album and start letting George and Chunky become producers, producing other artists and
uh-huh.
developing them. And if they don't have the capital, then we can produce them and put them out through our label. If they do have the capital, then we'll show them how to do it themselves, you know. And I think that's the next stage. But Chunky has a whole vision, a whole plan, and I'm just kind of like I'm trying to understand it, but I got to show him, let's do this first so you can see all aspects of it. So when you go on to do your plan, you can already check this off the box. And with George, George already just knows I just want to make music. You know what he told me the other day that was kind of awesome. He said, when you gonna start on the next album? You know what I'm saying? You know what you're gonna do. So he's already ready to move to the next project. This project's done, Dad. We mixing, we mastering. This is done. Let's start working on the next project. So George is gung ho producer, you know, and but I'm speaking for them when they can speak for themselves. You
So,
know,
what about the marketing? Who handles marketing? I mean, how does it go from we mastered this? It's in some form, whether it's MP4s or pressed on a CD or whatever. Then how does it get in people's hands that the people are paying for it and you're getting paid back?
well, well, I'm using CD Baby as my distributor, and CD Baby has a lot of affiliate partnerships with different viral companies, and they put it in all the DSPs, the digital streaming platforms, the Pandoras, the Instagrams, the Spotify's, the iTunes, the Deezer, Amazon Music. So
Yeah.
CD Baby gets it everywhere that it needs to be.
I
And
see.
then also, and I've been working with another social media marketing company to do the awareness campaign and drive traffic. So that was my main machine, is just having the internet company drive the traffic there. And because they only got two choices when they once they get there, either they like it or they don't like it. I just need them to get there to make that choice. So that's what I've been utilizing. And then I also hired an independent streaming company that works with a lot of the curators and the playlists to get music put on particular playlists to help get the streamings up. So that was my method. Now, Chunky, he has a vision. He has some idea of what he wants to do. We might incorporate some of my ideas, but when he's finally make his decision to rock and roll, of course I'm gonna give him the blueprint, but he's going to have his own vision. Now, with George, it's just a matter of, I don't know. Like, that's what I'm saying. They could tell you what their plans is
Okay.
next.
George,
I,
what's
I,
next for you? Where do you want to go next with your business, their business, independent artist, or teamwork, or whatever? What's your vision?
George.
Yeah,
Me?
George. Sorry.
Oh, I don't know. I just kind of want to make beats for like more known people, so I could like build my credibility up, so more people like know what I could do, and then yeah, so I could like have better connections with more people, so that I could like make music in general, like more music, like more known people, so I could work with more people that are like already at that level. So I could work with them as well. So yeah.
Cool. Chunk,
Ooh,
what's your big dream? If you don't mind sharing, like
big
where do you want to go?
things.
Yeah.
Uh, I just want to be able to make music without any distractions. Uh, that's all I really do. All I have passion for. I really like. I play sports and stuff for like fun, but I don't really take it seriously because I think it's a waste of time. So I just want to be able to make music, bro. I ain't gonna lie. You know what I'm saying? I ain't gonna lie. Lately, I've been making more songs than beats. Uh, I'll be making songs like every day, bro. I just haven't recorded them yet. I've been writing them, so
Oh,
that's what I want. I just want to make music. I don't really care if I'm dedicated from it.
Cool.
wonderful. What? Okay, I'm going to wind it up with one question for each of you. What? And I'm going to stick with you, Chunk, since we're talking to you. What is the most significant lesson you've learned from watching your dad?
Does it have to be like music wise or what?
No, I'm thinking life lesson. Like he's done a lot of living.
Most significant, I say like how do you like from the do something like at least to think ahead about it. Just whatever I do, make sure I do it right. You know what I'm saying? Like think ahead, basically. And
Solid.
put more thought into stuff. Probably the most significant I'll say because that could really play in different situations. The other stuff are like kind of strictly for certain situations, but I guess that could play out for everything that you do.
Cool. Thank you, George. What about you? You had time to think.
Uh, um, I feel like a life lesson, and I like picked up from my dad. I'm gonna just go with him always telling us to do something that we're like actually passionate about. Don't do something just because you see somebody else doing it. Just to be passionate about what we do. To like make sure we're doing something that will help benefit us in the future, basically.
Thank you very much. Nice, nice. Kimeyo, last words of wisdom from you. Thank you guys all so much for being here with us. But Kimeyo, anything to add?
Well, I could just say I appreciate you and Miss Connie for allowing us to be on your platform. I'm very appreciative of that. It was really enlightening to hear what they had to say. But I could tell you what life lessons I learned from both of them. Like what I learned
Please.
about storage is feelings, emotions, like learning how to curve them. Like every emotion don't need to be exposed, you know. Some things you can hold together, you know. And I learned that from him. And with Chucky is like life isn't necessarily over. You still can do some more living. I'm still going they still gonna need me in a way. Like don't just think that they done because they getting older now. They still can come and ask me little things and this and that. They still gonna want to be around me. They still watching and learning. So I learned that from Chucky. I enjoy being their dad right now and working with them. This is the best dream come true to be able to work with my two boys doing music to where I know I don't have to babysit them. I could just let them do it themselves and they'll figure it out. And then if they do have an issue, I'm pretty confident they'll come back and ask me for my advice. But for the most part, I don't have to babysit them. That's like anybody that helped anyone in life, taught anybody how to fish, anybody how to do anything where you don't have to babysit or micromanage. I love the fact that I do not have to babysit or micromanage them. And I can tell them something one time and they'll catch on. Well,
Nice.
Smart dad. Good job on all of
It
you.
gets better from here.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much for taking the time and for you guys coming on together and sharing your life and your passion with us.
And your wisdom.
We'll look forward to following your story ongoing.
no problem. And the process is coming out December 2024. I was about to call it the lesson, but the process 2024 on Kimeyo Records, distributed by CD Baby, produced by Chunky on the track, and George made it. And we hope you like the presentation that we give you.
Great.
Awesome. We will
Well,
make sure to put that in the show notes and the description on YouTube, and we'll let you know when we publish it. It's going to be a few weeks.
No problem, no problem. And it's Kimeyo.com.
Kimeyo.com. Yes.
Great.
Kimeyo.com. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Thank you so much again. And you guys enjoy the rest of your, well, it's still almost afternoon there.
Yes.